Have you ever heard it said that humans only use 10% of their brain and been left to imagine what it would be like if humans could use 100% of their brain? Did you know that it was bullshit? That's what we're going to be exploring in today's episode of The Living Philosophy. Just before we jump in, if you're enjoying these videos, it'd be really great if you could hit the like button below, and if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel. All this really helps things to keep growing, so yeah, without further delay, let's jump right in. The idea that humans only use 10% of their brains is like a really constant theme in a lot of sci-fi, and because it's such a fascinating idea when you think, oh, if we're only using 10% of our potential, imagine what 100% could be. And it's an intoxicating kind of idea, and it's been used to give humans like extrasensory powers or to be tapped in on some higher level of consciousness. And when you think about it though, what is it to use 100% of your brain? It's absurd when you think about it, because so many parts of your brain are like memory or sensations. So for everything that you look at, for everything you experience, there's a part of your brain that mirrors that is, there's a cluster of neurons that are about that thing. So to have your entire brain lit up at once, let's just leave aside all the motor skills and all that, but just in terms of perception, you would be experiencing every memory you've ever had simultaneously. You would be experiencing every skill, every part of your brain that could be lit up would be lit up. You would just be catatonic. You would just be like, what the fuck is going on? Except you wouldn't be saying that, because every word in your language would be active in your brain at once. So you would just be like, you know? Except you wouldn't even be like that, because all your facial, it just wouldn't work. So, you know, the idea of using 100% of your brain is, it's an appealing idea on the surface of it. But once you think any little bit deeper, it becomes a bit strange. Now you might say, okay, but what if we just aim to use a little bit more of the brain to activate more faculties? And quite possibly, but I don't think it's a particularly helpful way to look at it. And while I do think there's a lot of potential in terms of brain stuff, I know there's this electrical pulse thing that's being used for, it's a new treatment for depression, and so far it's showing a much higher rate. I think in a small study it showed like a 90% rate of curing depression, something outrageous like that, compared to, I think, antidepressants are 50-50. So it's really, antidepressants are just flipping a coin. It's maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. So it's like something like that is promising, and the way I think about the potential of something like that is that you could wire the pathway. So it's not about using all the brain at once. It's about wiring the brain most efficiently. So in studies they've done with meditators, they found that meditators have parts of their brain, the prefrontal cortex connecting into the limbic system, is there's a thicker pathway there associated with increased use and increased potential and increased power there. So the way you could use that depression therapy, perhaps if it can be used to strengthen parts of the brain, then you could strengthen that prefrontal cortex pathway of the brain, and then maybe you can experience some kind of contentment, not being overwhelmed by those intrusive thoughts. And I guess that's the principle behind the depression model, but that's also the principle behind wisdom, really, is the being able to live according to your values and according to your what you believe is right, rather than just being overwhelmed by the emotional, by the impulse. And that's so often how people get outmaneuvered by their unconscious. And maybe something like that is dangerous. Maybe that would give us too much conscious control, and then we're abdicating the other consciousness of the unconscious from taking up its role. So it's interesting. I think that we could use a little help on the brain front right now, especially considering how different modern society is to almost every other condition humans have lived in. So it would be interesting to give ourselves a bit of help, but I don't think we need to substantially change the way the brain works, and I definitely don't think we need to be using 100% of the brain. So that's just what I wanted to explore on today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'd love to hear from you down in the comments if you have any thoughts, insights, feedback, anything like that. So yeah, otherwise I shall see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.